District 6 now?
Well, as you know, the government has decided to declare District 6 a totally white area, and it had begun moving the people out of the area, removing them forcibly and throwing them onto the Cape Flats, where they have to find a new place to stay. In the meantime, the President's Council had recommended to the government that District 6 be given back to the so-called colored community, at least a section of it, and the government has flatly rejected that recommendation. And now District 6 is being given to white people, and the government is heavily subsidizing the houses in that particular area, which is something that people have been asking for all the time. People have been telling the government, look, if you will help us, if you will subsidize a building scheme here in District 6, we can renovate these old lovely cottages, and in so doing we can retain the character of this particular and very unique area in Cape Town. The government has refused to do so, but the government is giving it now to whites, and I think a kind of inevitable way that the government has had for more than 30 years of alienating people, of doing whatever it wants, of grabbing every good piece of land that it wants, and of simply showing to people that white supremacy in this country is going to be the top priority of this government as long as it stays in power.
Yet the government has spoken recently about power sharing, now that P.W. Botha has got rid of his right wing, and that there might be some constitutional approach to the coloured people to include them in some form of power sharing.
Well, you know, the only thing that I can say about that is, the government continually speaks of healthy power sharing, and we have learnt over more than 30 years of nationalist rule in this country that whatever is very healthy for the nationalists is probably very unhealthy for the rest of us. B, one must remember that we have gone since the early 1970s through the stage of black consciousness, which have taught us a solidarity amongst all black people in this country, and which have taught us that it is not morally nor politically acceptable to go into a constitutional plan in which all people in this country will not have the right to vote, to put their representatives in parliament, and will not have the right to meaningful participation at the highest level of decision making. And this is not what the government is prepared to give. And I very, very strongly feel that the majority of the people in the so-called colored community will not accept this new deal, because in fact it is not power sharing at all.
What would you say the level of resentment or the depth of resentment is amongst the coloured people?
Well, let me say one thing. I do not think that there is any shred of confidence or any kind of trust left in the government in terms of the coloured community. The level of frustration is extremely high. This is the government that had taken away the even limited parliamentary representation that their so-called colored people had had prior to 1948. This is the government that put us on a separate voters roll and even took us off that separate voters roll in 1959. This is the government that had introduced Group Areas Act. This is the government that had introduced Bantu education and colored education. This is the government that over more than 30 years had done everything in its power to rob the black community in this country of its human dignity and of any vestige of political power that we may have had. What more can I say? I myself do not think that there is anybody, even the stooges in our community, do not really trust the government. They go along because they get paid and because they have a few privileges. But in the community, there is a feeling of total rejection.
Where did you live before you came to live here?
Well, actually, just in the opposite side, in the same area, but just a bit further up.
And you lived in a house?
Yeah.
And when did you move into this place?
Well, that was in approximately in October last year,
After they broke your house down?
which is right. So we haven't had any shelter. So we just try and move in here. So, haven't stopped with that's why we're covering it. That's all over.
These houses.
Well, I think they're a great advantage if you can get one of them.
Are they very cheap?
I understand they vary in price. I think these are the lower
They are
ones.
cheap.
Yes. Cheap, I mean, nothing's cheap today, but
But you do manage to buy them under a special concession. I mean, the bond repayments and so on.
that we haven't inquired into. We're just inquiring about the whole layout now. And really, we haven't been to the office to find out about this.
Would living in this area worry you at all because of its history?
Because of what?
Certainly not.
Its history, the fact that it was District 6 and belonged to coloured people and so on.
Well, I suppose one has a feeling, I don't know. We're new to Cape Town, so I really couldn't say about that.
Well,
Yes.
I definitely wouldn't have.
It wouldn't disturb you at all?
Not at all, not in the least.
Okay, thank you very much.
If decent people live next door to me, I would mind.
Thank you.
I think
Thanks.
that they're-
Oh, God.